Hey there, it's Jane. I hope you're doing great. I knew I needed to make about 25 Easter cards this year, and I wanted to keep them simple, but I also wanted to make them all a little bit different. So I focused on 2 or 3 different stamp and die sets as well as different colors of pastel cardstock. I went into my stash of some backgrounds that I'd already made previously. I don't know if you do that, make backgrounds and set them aside. But I shopped my own stash and I came up with some really great Easter cards, if I must say so myself. I will put all of the links and products I use in my blog post, so please check that out at positivelykjane.net. This video is not going to show you how I made the cards because I realized when I was all done that I did not actually turn my camera on. But I will show you what products I used, and I will try to explain to you the process that I used when I made these cards. I used the CZ Designs Inlaid Crosses, Clean Line Faith, and He Is Risen, as well as some new flower die cuts that Simon Says Stamp just came out with. So I hope you enjoy these cards, and I hope you give them all a try yourself, and you will be surprised how many you can make in 1 or 2 days. So let's get into it. Okay, so I have a big stack of cards here, as you can see, and I'm going to show you now what products I actually used to make these cards. The one on top on the left is a background that I had in my stash, and that is an alcohol ink background, which I'll explain in a second. I use the Simon Says Stamp UR background stamp. I use that all the time. It's one of my favorites. This is actually a CDZ design that you can get at Simon Says Stamp. I use the blessings, the Easter, He is Risen, and I cut apart the Happy Easter and use just the Easter from that particular sentiment. This is the CZ Designs He is Risen die set, as you can see right here. It is a layering die set, as well as the CD Designs Inlaid Crosses die set. This is Simon Says Stamp Daffodil Stem. I did not get a chance to use that, but I did use these crocus flowers quite a bit in my cards. They're 2 crocuses, and I love the fact that they face each other and they fit perfectly on a card. This background was from my stash. It's an alcohol background that I then ran through an embossing folder, and I took a little bit of a sandpaper and sanding block and sanded off the top. That's how I created that background. I knew I wanted pastel colors. I knew I needed to make between 25 and 30 cards, and I wanted to make them all different. So I created that background previously, and I used the CZ Designs He is Risen, and I put a little shading on the cardstock color. And again, everything will be linked in my blog post, so please check that out. I stamped Easter blessings on the back of all of the envelopes, and they all came from Simon Says Stamp or Gina K Designs. This particular background is an embossed resist. I embossed with white embossing powder and then colored it with Distress Oxide inks. I cut a little vellum circle with this Lawn Fawn stick circle. There's a large and a small in both of that. This particular one, the cardstock, actually came from My Favorite Things, and that inlaid cross was a alcohol ink background I had made previously, where I made the background and then I stamped with alcohol lift ink, and that made the polka dots on there. And I just think it came out beautiful. The CD Designs Clean Line Faith also has matching die cut so that you can actually cut out the word with the die cut. There's a 2 showing you one with the white on top and one without the white on top of the cross. I went and made about 20 different backgrounds using stencils and Nouveau Glimmer Paste in the color Moonstone. And I will show you in the blog post what stencils I used for which cards. That cross came from my stash. That was a watercolor background that I already had previously. These are the stencils that I used. I used the Altenew Feeling Dottie, which is one of my absolute favorites. Heffy Doodle Ring of Rosies. The Hero Arts Glorious Petal. I actually did not use that in any card. I just wanted to show you that it was one of my options. Simon Says Stamp Circular Lace. This particular one is the Echo Park Splash. And the next one is a Simon Says Stamp Daisy Bouquet. That is brand new right now. And that is, I use that quite a bit on my cards. It's one of my favorites. And I can see, stenciling that with watercolors or anything. This is the Glimmer Moonstone Paste. I laid it down with the spatula and then this scraper thing, and I'll link that to you in my blog post. I can't think of the name of it right now. I'm calling it the scraper thing, but it worked great. Made short work of getting that paste on there smooth. I used Gina K 40-pound vellum and Brutus Monroe embossing powder on anywhere I had vellum. And you can see the differences in the cards. You can see how the difference of the color, the crosses came from the same watercolor background I had in my stash, but the difference in pattern and the difference in color of the cardstock really gives you a completely different look of your cards. This is, I use the crocus flowers here. I stamped the UR on the white background, die cut the flowers, and I just adhere them on top of the background. They are not inlaid in there. And there's a little bit of text on those flowers as well. I actually stamped that as well. This particular one, I stamped the UR background and cut it out. And this is sitting on top of, it's not inlaid, it's sitting on top of. I used the same blue and I did some Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to give you a close-up of this one in just a second. You will see how I utilize both parts of the flower for two different cards. Here's another one with that. This is an alcohol ink background that I had in my stash. And the one, here's a sample of it. I save all of my scraps and I kind of lay out which one I want. And the one on the left is the exact same background, just a little bit different part of it. And that background of that card is called an Emboss Resist. I got this idea from Jennifer McGuire. It's supposed to look like stained glass. I got the idea from Jennifer McGuire and I put glossy accents in the flowers so that you can see through it there. Came out pretty good, I think. It was the most difficult of all of the cards to make, but it came out really nicely. Here's another background I had from my stash. I'm digging through to show you the exact same background. You can see one has the white on the left, has the white overlay, and the one on the right does not, but you can still see it. I'm trying to show it to you in the light there. This background I had on my stash, and the cross I actually cut out with white cardstock and colored with Copic markers. This is another one of the alcohol backgrounds where I put through an embossing folder and sanded with a sander. And then I did the He Is Risen on top of a vellum, and I popped it up with some clear pop-up dots that I have. Another cross that I had from my stash using the Splash stencil. These two exact same colors, same cross, but different stencils. And look at the difference you get in the cards. You'd be surprised just messing around and picking all your different colors. This was a watercolor background I had that I put the text on top, and then that's just a piece of patterned cardstock I had in my stash. That was a watercolor I shot myself here. Another one of the, and I put glossy accents on top of that cross to give it a little bit of a shine. And then this one, I can't really say I love the card, the one's in my hand right now, but I wanted to show you that I cut out the flower and I put it on top of the card on the right. And then when you open up the card, there are your two flowers. I love the technique. I just don't feel that I gave myself enough room to write a sentiment. So next time I do that, I'll use a smaller die cut. Here's another pink one with the same cross. Another of the crocuses with the clear vellum circle, just to give it a little more interest. So I'm sorry I didn't give you the techniques, but you can get your cards out, save all of your scraps. I love these particular stamps and dies. It took me about a day and a half to make these cards. Really did not take as long as you would anticipate. But I can't wait to send out these cards to the recipients to the people in my family, and hopefully they will like them. And then just as a little fun thing, I wanted to show you what my craft room looked like when I was all finished with these cards. My drawers are open, my embossing powder's out, my table is a wreck, and it's crazy. It's hard to find things when it looks like this, but I will tell you, I will clean it all up, including sweeping the floor, before I move on to my next project. So here's another look of the cards again. I hope you really enjoy them, and I hope you're encouraged to go out and make yourself some Easter cards, and multiples are absolutely great. You got everything out. You might as well just keep on working. Thanks so much.